Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Regenerative Business Podcast. I am here with special guest Emily Brant. She is a Indigenous mentor, author, and speaker who helps coaches, therapists, teachers, healers decolonize their practice and create more inclusive spaces. And I've invited her on because this is part of this Radical Riches series, talking with people who are channeling wealth into the collective change in the world. And I was already wanting to ask Emily to come on for this series, but when I asked the Instagram community, her name just popped up again and again. So you
Well,
guys were expecting her.
that's
So hi,
sweet.
Emily. I'm so happy you're here.
Hi, me too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here.
Hmm.
Uh,
So there's so many different directions that I'm excited for this conversation to go in, and I'm hoping that we'll go through it all. But I'm thinking already that this conversation will be titled Stewarding Wealth. And because this was a program you were actually planning on leading, but it's not right timing, or maybe it'll happen in the future. So I just want to hear, like, how do you actually define stewarding wealth and what does that mean for you?
Ooh, that's a great question. Thank you. Yeah, so to me, stewarding wealth means you're similar to a steward of land, which is how we see land as Indigenous peoples. Hi, everyone listening, first of all. I just wanted to say a little bit about
Jump
I know
right
you're
in.
going to have my formal introduction and everything, but I just want to acknowledge my ancestry that I am Mohawk First Nations on my father's side, Algonquin First Nations, and European settler on my mom's side. And so when I reference things like my people or my ancestors, I'm usually referring to my Indigenous ancestors. And so the way we view land stewardship is, for example, we see it as a responsibility versus ownership. We never talk about who owns the land, it's who's the caretaker of the land. And I think we can apply the exact same thing to wealth. Because if you think about wealth, if you think about money, it is something that you can own, but really at some point you're going to cycle it into the universe, right? You're going to put it back out into the world. You're going to steward it. You're going to be responsible for it and for what you do with it, whether that's putting some into a savings account. That's a great way to steward it as well. Sending some to your community, sending some to a company whose values you really align with, who you really want to support. That is all great. Those are all great examples of wealth stewardship. So that's how I think of it.
So beautiful. And something I was reading from your public shares is, like, when you're talking about this level of work, you were talking about engaging in wealth manifestation and business growth from a decolonized, anti-oppressive lens. And wow, that is such a powerful statement, and not many people are talking about it that way. So, is there anything you would like to share about what is that difference when we're actually coming from a decolonized, anti-oppressive perspective?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things, but I think the biggest thing is it's the difference between individual, like hoarding up a pile of cash for you and you alone, which is a very like colonial way of being, and versus an indigenous version of wealth actually centers community well-being. And actually, there's a really great book. It's called Indigenomics. I highly recommend
Ooh,
everyone read it.
okay.
Uh, yeah, it's really fantastic. And it outlines this is the Indigenous view on wealth. Not to be like pan-Indigenous and say that
Yeah.
all nations and communities think the exact same way, but we do share a lot of similar worldviews. And so the general view on wealth is actually like your wealth is measured by how well your community is doing or how much you're giving away. That's actually how we measure wealth. It means having enough to share.
Mm,
And so versus in a colonial lens, it's and a lot of what we see in the industry we're in of like the wealth coaches and the manifestation teachers, it's like how much can you, the individual, personally hoard up and just stock up for yourself. So I think there's many sort of parallels and comparisons we can make, but that's the biggest one that comes top of mind for me.
oh my gosh, that's so good. I was writing down having enough to share being this point.
Yeah.
There's something that comes up a lot with, because I have an environmental activism background, and I know with a
Yes.
bunch of different spaces, whether it's a religious background or any sort of activism background, there's usually this negative association with the individual or a single family doing well to the point that you can't even have enough. you can't even do well for yourself. There's like obviously a difference between the person who hoards and is like extractive and taking away versus someone who is making enough to support themselves and their families. So I'm wondering if there is an actual metric or measurement around when do you actually have enough to share? Is it we want to be pushing it out even before we have enough, or is it like, oh, we need to fill up our own space first? Is there anything like that in the wisdom?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's an interesting question. I don't think that there's, at least from my lens, I don't think that there's a specific metric. And personally, like my personal beliefs is as long as your basic survival needs are met, there's almost always something you can share.
Yeah.
If it's not money, it might be time, it might be your gifts that you have, it might be the unique medicine you can offer. But it is, I like that you bring up this point about the kind of activism space or lots of religious communities where there is this like shaming of doing well for yourself. So I want to make it very clear that I am totally all for people doing well for themselves, because when you can take good care of your own health, your
Right.
own peace of mind, your own family, you're going to show up and serve the world better, and you're going to be your best self wherever you go. And it's just a fact we have to come to terms with, that money is a resource that we do need in this day and age to survive and to thrive. It just is. We need that resource. And so seeing it as a resource is something that's really helped me, and just remembering, oh, it's a resource, instead of the super emotionally charged, oh, money's done so many bad things, money is the root of all evil. That's common in a lot of religious groups. So flipping that narrative. But the thing that I notice is I have a lot of family members that are super religious, and their beliefs are that you're more worthy or you're more holy if you're like suffering, and if you're poor and you're living a like a humble life. But then I see them making such selfish decisions because they have to, because they don't have money. So
Yeah.
they have to be greedy. They have to take actions that are selfish.
Mm.
Or when I was struggling in my business, I had to make moves that were not aligned, that didn't feel good, that I didn't have peace about,
Mm.
because my survival was on the line. And we don't move in a good way when our survival's on the line.
What do you feel like was the shift for yourself in your own business when you felt like you weren't making enough and there it was in this survival mode to making enough or more than enough so that you could, how did your body, your relationship with your work, your relationship with your creativity, how did that shift?
Oh, that's a big question for me to answer, because it was the whole thing. It was pretty much my Saturn return, for anyone
Oh,
who's familiar with a Saturn return,
yeah.
where your whole life basically crumbles and you have to learn these massive lessons. That's essentially what led to my business as it was, which was very set up in the way that I was taught, which was pretty colonial, as most of the industry is, which we can get more into what that means. But it was set up like that, and it was always such a hustle to make ends meet. But I had a few like really good months and really wanted to leave my 9 to 5 job that I was in at the time. So I was like, you know what? I've matched or beat my income for the last couple months. I am out of here. And I left my job. And I'm still glad that I did, because it was a very toxic workplace. And I went full time in my business. But now that I was full time in my business and going through this Saturn return, like identity crisis, all this stuff, all this pressure was on my business to be my sole source of income,
Yeah.
to pay my rent, to pay my groceries, to pay any technology, any team members, anything in my business. There was so much pressure there. And then from that place of pressure, it was really hard, and the business stopped being fun and creative. And it just felt harder and harder to get clients. And so eventually, through some great mentorship, I realized that when you close yourself off to money coming in from one area, you close it off from all areas. So I had it in my mind that like I couldn't get a job again because
Mm.
that world was toxic, just because
Yeah.
that one job was really toxic. And then I was like, what if I just open my mind a little bit? And what if there were jobs that weren't toxic? Or what if there was a job where I could work from home? Or what if there was a part-time opportunity? And I just started opening my mind to all the ways money could come in, and trusting that creator and God is my source of income, not any one client or not any one job. And so just really opening myself back up to that. And then I did end up going back and getting a full-time job, which was really perfect for me. And then it led to this other job where I still am today. That's even more perfect for me. It's for an Indigenous relations office. I get to do decolonization work. It's very in line with what I like to talk about and what I do. And so with that stability now, then the business has never been easier. The business, like from there, I was able to get the clarity on what I need to speak about, what I want to speak about, what kind of people I want to work with. And there was just no pressure on the business anymore. And then once that pressure was gone, of course, floodgates opened, and I've had some of my most successful months and times in business.
That's awesome. Do you like having that diversified channels of abundance coming into your life and you want to keep it that way? Or is there any desire for the future where you're like all in on your business again?
Yeah, I do really like the stability of knowing exactly what my paycheck's going to be. I love the benefits. It's a
Oh,
really, it's a
yeah.
really nice paycheck. I love the free massages. I love the
Oh
free physio.
my gosh.
I'm going to have eventually, if I'm lucky enough to be a mother one day, I'm going to have a paid maternity leave. I'm really excited about that. So I'm enjoying the work too. And
Yeah.
I'm very open with them that I have a business.
Yeah.
So they know this is what I do in between meetings or in the evening after work. And they're very supportive of it, which I feel very grateful for. But I do see moments where at the end of the workday, all of my capacity is gone, my mental focus is gone, and I'm like, oh, I would have done so much in my business today, but now I'm out of brain juice. So
Yeah.
I do think eventually it would be nice to be able to have the business at such a threshold where it's now there's so much stability and safety net there that
Mm.
now I can just do my business full time, but there would have to be such a cushion for me personally.
Yeah.
Um, and I've learned everyone's wired differently. There's people that can really thrive on that all or nothing,
Hmm.
kind of everything on the line type of pressure. And then there's people like myself because of ancestral trauma. And for me, I've realized there's a deep ancestral fear that everything will be ripped out from under me. And of course, that makes sense because that is literally what happened to my ancestors.
Yeah.
Everything will just be taken and it'll all be gone. That fear still crops up a lot. So that's something that I'm personally always working on healing.
I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that. It reminds me of something a mentor of mine was talking about with pricing, because in the industry, it's like always like we have to charge more, we have to charge more, we have to charge more and more. And which is there's times where that's 100% valid to charge more, right? But that's not necessarily the default. But she was talking about pricing offers not necessarily based on how much I can get out of it, but in the realm of realizing all of the different ways that the offer is serving you beyond just money. Where it's, if you're doing one-on-one sessions with someone and you could technically charge $1,000 per session, but you actually want to charge $150 per session because that is keeping you at the pulse of this specific person that you want to be serving, and it feels accessible, and it's making easier for people to come in, so you don't feel like you even have to market, and it's allowing you to have all of these creative breakthroughs and make all of these connections that is like serving a book you want to write someday, and taking away of the only reason I'm pricing something is I'm trying to get as much money as I possibly can out of something, and instead of realizing all of the different ways it's serving you that are not just monetary.
Yeah, that's so good. That's
Mhm.
so good. It's so true. Actually, the mastermind I'm in was just having that conversation on our call today too. There's nothing wrong with keeping the price that at a price that works for the people you want to work with.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my friend the other day too about this, and we were talking about we sleep really well at night. We might not have the multi-million dollar business just now, but we are pricing in such a way, we're serving in such a way that we have peace.
Yeah.
We have so much peace. And so that to me is worth everything.
Yeah.
I don't know if some of the folks that are operating the way they're operating, I truly don't know how or if they sleep at night.
Yeah. The question.
Yeah, which is a whole other rabbit hole that we could go down. But yeah, yeah.
So I like your piece too. I like my piece as well.
Yeah.
You were starting to talk about this ancestral piece, and a term that I've seen you use is ancestral abundance. What does that mean? How can people access it?
Yeah. Yeah. So Ancestral Abundance is my core money program manifestation from this anti-oppressive lens, from this ethical wealth stewardship lens, and from tapping into the strength and the wisdom of our ancestors, because this has been such a beautiful and successful and lucrative path for me, is ever since I started connecting with my ancestors to see what's there that needs to be healed. And there's so much there that I was not taught to even look at or talk about or think about in most of the primarily white spaces that I was in for things like money, manifestation, personal development, coaching. It was always like, oh, we're all one. Don't even think about race or anything like that. Like, it wasn't even a topic. And then eventually I stumbled into it on my own and realized how much healing was there. And there was so much ancestral grief, rage, pain, fear, and I had to move through that really on my own, which is what led me to doing the work that I'm doing now, so that people don't have to move through this work alone. But what I also uncovered is, whoa, there's so much wisdom here too. There's so much strength here too. There's so much life lessons, because our ancestors are the ones who literally walked this earth path before us. And so what I love about working with ancestors, for folks who are used to working with like spiritual entities, is that ancestors, they were once human, and they know they have a lot of wisdom to share and a lot of riches, right? And so tapping into that. So in the program, there's like ancestral meditations where you connect and you just learn habits and things to connect with your ancestors more regularly. And I truly believe that our ancestors that are of the highest good and light and intention, important to call on those ones, because there can be like trickster ancestor or like trickster energies too. So I always call on ancestors that are of the highest good and light. But they truly want us to thrive, because we are their descendants. Like, my riches are their riches. And my ancestors have inspired so much of my work, my creativity, which has led to so much abundance. They've like put people on my path, they put opportunities on my path. And so even if it's not ancestors for you, what is that spiritual power you can connect to, right? Maybe you call it gods, God, creator, goddesses, angels. But again, the reason I like working with ancestors is because they've been human, versus when you, and they understand when you're like in it and you're stressed and you're struggling. I feel they just feel more compassionate, and they're like right there with me. Whereas an angel or a spirit guide, it is better at that like big picture view. Like, they can really zoom out. And I find when I talk to spirit guides and let's say I'm like just getting let go from my job or something, they're like, meh, you'll be okay. Like, they're very fine if they're, or like when I ask a question, yeah, you could do that program or not. Like, it's really, you
Doesn't
determine your
matter.
own destiny. It's so like airy fairy. So I just find ancestors so grounded and just so helpful. So that's why I work with them a lot.
That's making me think of, because a lot of people in my business ecosystem are identify as creatives, and they have this like creative juice flowing through them. And I'm remembering one who was talking about how she had a very deep connection with the soul of an offer that she had, and a deep connection with her creativity. And she was not honoring her human self at all. It was like channeling the
Mhm.
spirit of this offer, and it was like killing her human self and not taking account to her time, her body, or anything. So I'm assuming that working with ancestors, they'll actually account for those important things.
Yes. Yeah, that's so funny. That's such a good point. Yeah, my ancestors frequently, they remind me a lot how proud they are of me, like every kind of step along the way. And then they also remind me to rest
Yeah.
and take care. And I don't know if you've probably read the book Rest is Resistance by Trisha Hersey. Yeah, and I was really inspired by how she says, I'm taking the rest my ancestors are owed. And she says that repeatedly through the book. And that's something I think about a lot too whenever I rest. I'm like, oh, this isn't just for me. This is for my ancestors who couldn't rest. So yeah, I think a lot of inspiration for that ancestral abundance came from that book too.
Okay, so this makes me want to take the conversation towards, you chose not to put out the program Stewarding Wealth, and it created a lot of spaciousness, which is like connected with wealth. And what happened?
Yeah.
Or tell me that story.
Yeah. So Steward of Wells, I love the name of it. I love the program that it possibly still will be one day.
Mhm.
But it was going to come out in January as a mastermind, which I was calling a hive mind. And I had this vision of honeybees, like when they come together and when we work in community, we get something so sweet like honey. So I really loved that. Just that was very inspiring to me. And when we look at nature, everything works better collectively and in community. So yeah, so it was like a group live program slash hive mind where you would get business coaching from me through this decolonial anti-oppressive lens. And it was for people who, because I see such good-hearted change maker, people who really care about social justice and care about their fellow humans, but they're so struggling with money. They're struggling to ask for money or feel good receiving wealth and all of that. So I was really excited for that. But I also work full time, as I've just said. And I also run another program called the Decolonized Coach Community, which is always running. There's 2 calls every single month. It's always enrolling, it's always running. And then there's the roundtable that I run live twice a year, which is only a 2 to 4 day thing, but it's a lot of work to launch it and run it and work with collaborators and all the things.
Yeah.
So I was just starting to feel into my capacity, and 2 people had already actually signed up and a few people had filled out the application but had not yet submitted payment or signed contract. And it just, the whole thing was feeling so sticky. It was like really hard to get people to actually sign the contract after they submitted their application. And then my energy was feeling sticky around it too. And so I was like, what's going on here? And so I really just sat, I gave myself permission to not have the answer right away. And I let myself sit with it because it wasn't starting until January anyway. Sat with it for about a week. And then the funny thing is there was like 4 people who were almost, they were like 99% in. They were like so excited when I came out with this offer. And all of those people who I thought were for sure yeses had the most wild life circumstances come up that they were like one of them literally is a victim of Hurricane Helene. And she's, I don't know where I'm going to be living tomorrow. I'm so sorry. I can't do Steward of Wealth. And I was like, totally understandable. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
But just like extreme stuff like that. And then I found myself actually feeling like, oh, I almost wish I had an extreme circumstance that I didn't have to run Steward of Wealth. And I was like, oh, that's bad to feel jealous of somebody who's just been through such a horrific, like a literal hurricane. That's not a good sign.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna run this. It's not fair to the people that are in it if I'm not like fully in it. And my capacity is just, it's just not there. Yeah. So I had to make the decision not to move forward with the program, at least for now, and that I would just focus on my job and my roundtable and DCC. And then obviously just bring up that mind space as well as the actual space to take action and talk about the roundtable again and DCC and make DCC the best it can be. Of course, like that's created such a vacuum. And now like sales are already booming for the roundtable. And even somebody bought the Decolonized Coach course and paid in full the other day. And I wasn't even advertising it, but that's just the magic of what happens when we create space. Yeah,
Mm.
that's the story.
What an affirmation for resting with your
Yeah.
ancestors.
Yeah. And I also feel like it was them like blocking the other people from joining too. And being like they're always sending little hints. And sometimes when we don't listen or we ignore the hints, then like the harder hits come, or we go ahead and we plow through anyway, which I've done many times. And then we learn the hard way about not honoring our energy and feeling resentful towards the work we're doing, or and just doing it in a way that's not our best. So that's lessons I've already learned that I didn't want to have to go through again.
Yeah. Like check that box,
Yeah.
moving on.
Yeah. We're
Next
done with that
lesson.
lesson. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Congrats. That's really
Thank
exciting.
you. Thanks.
We don't need more offers. You can just do really well at the ones that we have.
Yeah. And that's been a big thing for me too, is like um getting used to the fact, that I actually don't need the income from my business anymore.
Mm.
That's been a huge reprogramming that I've had to do after those couple years where my business was my only source of income. And now I'm truly at a place where I do not need the business income. So if I'm going to do something in my business, it's got to be fun. It's got to be simple. It's got to feel good or I'm out. Like, because I truly don't need it. And that's a really privileged place to be in. But just reminding myself of that. And then also the roundtable and the decolonized coach community, I've launched those. This will be the 5th time now this November. And I've never done anything this consistently in my life. I also pretty sure I have ADHD undiagnosed. So for me to have stick with one thing for so many rounds and not just be tempted to go off and create something else has been big. And I find ways to put a new spin on it every time, which really helps. And yeah, like just letting my nervous system settle into the fact that what I'm doing is working and it's safe. It's like safe to go all in with this thing that I'm doing. And it's a long-term thing. Like it's not going anywhere. It's going to be lucrative and serve me for a long time to come and serve people. And so it's safe to trust that I don't have to do a million other things as like a backup or from this and scarcity energy of like, where's the next paycheck? Where's the next paycheck?
So I'm curious, why are you charging for something then? Why are you charging in your business if you're already completely taken care of through your full-time job? Like, why not just give it all away for free?
Oh, energetic exchange is really important. I'm glad you asked this question. Oh, this is such a big topic. There are a lot of people in the Indigenous community specifically who criticize folks who charge for decolonization work.
Yeah.
Oh, our elders warned us people would try to monetize off decolonization. And as somebody who has been doing this for the last 2 years as a coach, and as somebody who does this in academia, this, as much as it's like aligned and rewarding for sure, and sometimes really fun, which is weird, but it is, it's the most emotional labor. It is not just me explaining something, like explaining a random concept that I'm not connected to. It is me opening up my heart and telling people something that I feel in my body, that I carry in my DNA, like the ancestral trauma stuff when I'm talking about colonization and assimilation and cultural appropriation and how that adds to our harm or how we're harmed when we're not being fully included or considered and we're more like an afterthought in people's programs. Like all of that is really intense emotional labor. So even though it is fulfilling and it is rewarding to see the ripple effect and the impact it has on the end person who's, so for in my case, it's the customers of the leaders and the coaches that I'm training and working with. It's them that are going to have better, safer, more supportive experiences. I still wouldn't do it for free because it's so much, it's labor. And I also think reciprocity and energetic exchange has to be there. So absolutely, I think we need to charge.
Is it also about the person on the receiving end? Is it important for them to pay?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on
Yeah. I think, yeah, there's got to be an exchange. And I've learned from Asha Frost, who is one of my Indigenous mentors and healers. She really introduced me to this concept of healthy reciprocity. And before I came into Asha's world, I was used to paying a coach and then feeling icky about it and not really getting a good, I had a lot of bad experiences, like not really getting the value. And I think a lot of people have had these experiences, right? Not really getting anything tangible, anything helpful, or having experiences of harm. And and then like thought that was normal. Like, oh, I guess that happens in this industry. Sometimes you sign up for a program, then you regret it or resent it. Like it happens so much that I actually normalized it.
Yeah.
And then I came into Asha's world and paid her for such a beautiful, profoundly healing for me program because it was culturally relevant to me and so just so healing. And I was like, whoa, I would happily pay her 20 more times.
Yeah.
I would do that again 20 more times. And I was like, whoa, it can actually feel good to pay someone. Like it's sad to say, but that was my first like, oh, healthy reciprocity. And that's something she talked about too, healthy reciprocity. It can feel good on both ends. And she talks about like in her practice, she used to be a homeopath and she had like clients physically come in and see her in office and they'd be like, where's your money box? Can I drop money into the box? And she'd be like, no, you can just put it in my hand. I'll just take it. And they were like, and other practitioners were like, you don't have a box. That's so wrong. People need to put it in an envelope, or you don't like directly take money. That's so rude. And she's, no, I think it's really beautiful. Like we're like showing the exchange, and like it's a good thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. And that's really what I've learned from her, is that it can feel good on both sides when it's aligned, when it's what feels like a generous and fair exchange for both sides. It can feel good to both pay and receive.
Hmm. Ooh. So what do you think are the key differentiators between unhealthy reciprocity and healthy reciprocity?
Mm. Yeah. So I think obviously in terms of pricing, it's so subjective, right? Something could be for $500, that could be an amazing deal for someone. And for someone else, that could be like, ooh, that's my whole paycheck for my whatever, my
Yeah.
groceries this month. So that part, I think it depends on the person. But I think from the person offering the services, what feels good and fair, and what brings you that peace that I was talking about earlier, right? What's the kind of exchange that you know people are paying you enough that you're not going to feel resentful and be like, I'm exhausted, I'm burning out, and I'm running these group calls every single month, and each person's paying me like $10. Like it's not sustainable. You know when that feeling's off and that exchange is off. And you also know when you're charging more than what you actually feel is fair, like what for what you're giving. So for me, I love to run my business on generosity and service. And I try to always like surprise people with how much they get for what they're paying, but not to the point where I'm compromising my own energy and going to be resentful.
Mhm.
So it feels good for me. I feel supported. I feel lit up and happy to serve. And my clients feel happy and excited to pay me. And yeah, I think it's a feeling more than anything, but everyone can tune into it.
Do you think there's a like a mindset piece of this? Because I've had experiences of feeling really uncomfortable at a certain price, and the person is, this is amazing, this is ever like so, like just feels so good on their end, but it feels uncomfortable on my end because it's more than I've ever charged. It and I have attributed that to a mindset piece of I haven't been charging enough, or I've been over giving in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, that can happen a lot too. I see
Mhm.
that a lot. I see that a lot with some of my clients too, where
Mhm.
I'm like, you can really be charging a lot more and people would happily pay it. But
Yeah.
they're like, oh, but I've never done it. So I think it's just one of those growth edges
Mhm.
that, yes, I do think in that case, it's like mindset stuff that can be worked through.
And for listeners, you can always, if you're at that growth edge and you're not sure whether it's the mindset piece or if it's like your intuition telling you it's the wrong price, you can always fix a problem. If a month later you're like, I overcharged this and still doesn't feel good, it wasn't a mindset thing, you can refund the person, you can
Yeah.
offer them extra sessions. There's way to fix the problem. So don't feel like you have to be in a freeze and putting off the decision.
Yeah, that's such a good reminder. I actually did that recently.
Oh, you did?
Somebody just, so I just decided to shift the decolonized coach community from, it was lifetime of the program access. And I was like, just, you get access to all the live calls twice a month for however long we're running this, probably years. It's already been a year and a half,
Oh.
and it's like just getting started. And then my business mentor was like, but like the clients don't really know what lifetime means anyway. So it's nicer sometimes to have like parameters for people. So like you're getting this for 6 months guaranteed or 12 months guaranteed or whatever it is. And she was like, just take that with a grain of salt. Like it's just a suggestion. And I sat with it and I was like, yeah, I want to change this to 12-month access and I want to lower the price because I was trying to build into the price lifetime access. I'm like, I don't know how long this is going to have to cover my energy for.
Yeah.
So it was priced at 18.95, which I still think is so amazing for lifetime of the program access. And there's 6 video modules, and then there's the live calls. And then after shift, I was like, I'm going to shift it to 12-month access. And I want to lower the price to make it more of a doable thing for more people. And then if they want to add on and extend their access, they can at like a reduced rate.
Yeah.
And so I just made this shift and hadn't switched over which link was in my Instagram. And somebody went and purchased it at the 1800. And I was like, ooh, now it's 1,300.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure they know. And then, because then they're going to see like the next live launch and they're going to be like, oh, I just paid 1,800. So I just messaged her and was like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm so excited you joined and you got lifetime access. And I really do think the lifetime access is great, but I just want to be transparent and I want you to have all the info that the price is actually lowered and now it's 12 months. So I'll let you choose. If you want to do that, we can do a refund and repurchase, or you can keep the lifetime access at 1,800. Yeah, so you can do things like that. You can just be honest.
Yeah. I like
Yeah.
I love that you brought this. I have like such strong opinions around the lifetime access. It's good for some people, but I think a lot of
Yeah.
people choose it because they see other people doing it and it's not actually aligned for them. Really, what if
Yeah,
there's 1,000 people in and you have to start hiring support coaches and
yeah.
you want to take a month off? What are you going to do then? And it's not like fully thought out.
It's so true. And it's like people paid you 2 years ago $1,000 and now you gotta keep serving them 3 years later. That's where that healthy reciprocity starts to go, like the exchange is gone. And I
Mhm.
don't ever want to be in a position where I'm like resenting my
Mhm.
decolonized coach clients because they're amazing. So it just, yeah, it's a way to help sustain my energy. And I think it serves them to like giving them that parameter. Because I know I have lifetime access to a bunch of programs and they're just in my unused course graveyard because I'm like, I have lifetime access. So I
Yeah.
don't know, I'll watch it later.
Oh, that's a really good point on the other side of this. Okay, let's not go down that rabbit
Yeah.
hole.
Yeah.
Okay, so you posted recently POV, you're a res girl who went from 30K in debt and a crumbling business to nearly 250,000 in all-time sales, no more debt, and averaging 6K months while working full-time and living with multiple disabilities and likely ADHD. I love seeing posts like this. I think it's so affirming for people. And also, I've seen there be this pushback and attacking that can come in. So I'd love to hear how people respond to stuff like that when you put it out there.
Yeah. Thank you. That I would say I don't put it out there a ton.
Yeah.
And normally when I do, it's met with a lot of encouragement and celebration. And I think yeah, there was a couple of pushback comments, or like I was telling you before we hit record, like there's a couple of, oh, people something. So there was comments, but how? Or you're not sharing how, or you're hiding the how. It's like, I'm not hiding anything. It's a 3-second video and there's only so much I can say and only so much I can say in the caption. And also I have entire programs on building wealth if you want to take them and participate in that healthy exchange that we're talking about, right? And I do my best to offer a ton of free value and sharing what's working for me. That's pretty much what my podcast is for. It's almost like a diary where I just like share lessons that I'm learning as I'm learning them. So yeah, I found a little bit of that, like the sense of you owe us the how. And sometimes there's negativity around, not that post in particular. That post got a really lovely response. But for example, my Facebook ads or my meta ads, where I talk about it's free, my free ebook, Decolonize Your Coaching Business. And there's a lot of Indigenous folks that comment on it, or BIPOC folks, and they're not happy that I have a business around decolonization. There's comments, we shouldn't be monetizing this. Decolonization is not a metaphor. Our elders warned us about people like you who are going to make money on decolonizing. I get called a white woman a lot because I'm white presenting. I have light skin.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? This white woman's trying to make money on decolonizing. So I find that sometimes these comments are unfortunately often like from our own communities, from other Indigenous people. And that's just a sad result of the oppression that's been done to us and the harm that's been done to us. And then sometimes we take it out on each other and almost think that tearing each other down or holding each other back will somehow elevate us when that's just not the case.
Hmm.
So yeah, a little bit of that pushback.
If someone is listening and they're either afraid to do well at all because of this, or they are doing well and they're afraid to share about it or publicly speak about it, can you talk about how you hold yourself or create like physical, tangible things you do in your life to support yourself through something that can be really challenging to face?
Yeah, for sure. I think the decision to share celebrations and wins like that, first of all, like really asking yourself, what's the intention behind sharing this? And am I going to be okay regardless of what the responses are?
Yeah.
If you're sharing it from a place of, really need some validation today,
Mhm.
or really need someone to tell me that I'm doing a good job, it may not be the best time to post.
Yeah.
If you're in a more grounded place where you're like, this could really inspire a lot of people, which is where I shared mine from, because I was just thinking about it. And even like the disabled piece, that's a word that I didn't even use until a year and a half ago, even though I have 3 different disabilities. It's taken me a long time to actually own and be like, yeah, I'm disabled. And like also likely ADHD and also working full time. And look what I've done. That's actually pretty huge. And I bet that could inspire a lot of people. So I posted it from that place. And I did really feel like I'm okay with whatever the response is, because I know my intentions and I know that's where I was posting it from versus this place of like maybe needing or wanting the validation, which is a total human thing. And sometimes we all have those moments. But when comments and things activate me, to answer your question about what do I do, we do a lot of somatic work. So I tend to follow the wisdom of the animals and like literally shake it off, right? If you've ever heard about how when ducks get into a fight or an altercation, they literally shake after, or animals, they shake after to get the trauma out of their body. So I'll do shaking or punching the air or just like running on the spot or any kind of movement, just so that like those things don't get stuck in me.
Yeah.
Because I certainly already have enough. I already have enough stuck in living in my body. I don't need to take on new stuff. So I find physical movement, smudging, using my smoke medicine, using meditation, prayer, all of that really helps ground.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, of course, you don't you have no obligation to share. For people listening, you have no obligation to share how things are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
So to start wrapping this up, I would love to hear from your own mouth why you think it's important for people of the global majority and Indigenous peoples to build wealth.
Oh, such a good question. Historically and presently, we are the most disadvantaged and excluded, of course, in addition to QIA folks, trans folks, obviously, and uh, yeah, like disabled folks. We already know we're systemically set up to fail, to have less access, less opportunity. There's just so many systems and things working against us. And yet we see that when we do well, our communities do well. Something Asha always says is like Indigenous folks are, and a lot of BIPOC folks like are naturally such giving people that we already know, like when one of us does well, we're taking care of the whole family. We're all gonna do well. And so I just love it for that reason. But also like even if you just do well for yourself, I think that's a huge win in a world that is set up so that you don't do well. So I just love seeing Black, Indigenous, Brown people of the global majority thriving despite everything. Yeah, there's so much. There's so much. I feel almost overwhelmed by this
Yeah,
question because it's such a big question.
I know.
But of course, like the ripple effects are massive. There's like representation too, and showing the next generations what's possible for them, blazing a trail for them. That's something I'm really passionate about. That's something that Asha Frost, who I've mentioned a few times, that's what she was for me,
Mm,
the first Indigenous person that I saw in this world of personal development and healing and coaching. She's not really a coach, but it's personal development space. She's the first Indigenous person that I saw taking up space in this industry. And she's a Hay House published author, and she's like a traveling keynote speaker. And those are things I've loved since I was a kid, but all I had was like white men and then eventually some white women to look up to. So it's also a really cool trailblazing thing when we
yeah.
succeed and take up space, especially in places where we're not meant to, or we've not been as welcomed. And yeah, the ripples of our success are just massive. And again, I think we're some of the most compassionate and caring folks because we understand what it's like to be under the thumb of colonizers. We understand what it's like to be without clean drinking water, or we understand what it's like to feel like your heart is breaking and the rest of the world is just going on with business as usual, but your people are dying or going missing, and children's bodies are being found, and no one seems as outraged as you. We understand that. So I think that makes us some of the most compassionate, giving, caring people, and why so many social justice educators and activists are folks from the global majority because we've had that lived experience. So of course, when you put money in their hands, like magic's going to happen when good-hearted people, and not that only BIPOC people are good-hearted, but just in general, when good-hearted people are well-resourced,
Mhm.
amazing change is going to happen.
So good. Mic drop. And on that note, how are you funneling your resources or channeling your resources in collective change? What are the causes on your heart that you're putting resources towards?
Yeah, lately, the last couple of months. So each month, I like to set 10% of my take home. I
Uh-huh.
used to do 10% of my gross, and I was like, oh wait, I barely broke even last month. I better revisit this plan. But I like to set aside now 10% of my take home profit each month to give to a different cause that's on my heart. And I feel passionate about a lot of Indigenous causes, and my community in particular is one that I'm going to be supporting soon through my sister's business. She just started a healing center on our reserve and
Wow.
is raising funds. Yeah, is raising funds for us to have like community sweat lodge so people can reconnect with the ceremony and the healing. So I'm really excited to be able to help with that soon. But lately it's been a lot of like aid and relief for Palestine and the people in Asheville, North Carolina, who've just been hit with a hurricane, and so many people coming together, like making meals and distributing them and doing such great things. So there's a great organization, Beloved Asheville. They're doing wonderful work. So yeah, I tend to switch it up each month. But I think other than just like donations and giving, we have to think about every part of our business. And I was just having this conversation with my friend Melinda, who you should also talk to. Like, they're incredible.
What's
And
the
they
name?
were saying, yeah, Melinda Jackson from the Call-In Experience. And they have experience working in philanthropy with big names, like with
Yeah.
really wealthy people.
Mhm.
And so they have such a brilliant lens about how to take that money and actually make it go the farthest and make the most impact.
Mm.
But
Oh,
they were saying that at every stage of the business, how are you making that impact? So if you're like a product-based business, they just started a business selling cookies, like really being thoughtful of where am I sourcing my chocolate from? Is it like fair trade, ethically farmed and sourced, and who's profiting from it? So from the ingredients to like how am I packaging it
yeah.
to who am I hiring, who are the team members. So for coaches and people in this space, it's like I always say, who are your mentors? Who are you hiring? Who are your photographers? Who are your astrologers? Who are your guest teachers and experts that you're bringing in? And for a lot of people, they're like, whoa, I've been hiring all white women or like white, cis, able-bodied, traditionally attractive, like
Yeah.
straight women. And I didn't even realize, but that's one area where you can really make an impact too. It's not just like in how you're donating.
Mhm.
It's who you're hiring, what courses are you taking, whose work are you supporting, whose work are you amplifying, even beyond money, right? There's so many other actions. So I like to think about that too with wealth stewardship.
Oh, so good. Thank you for saying that. And so tell us where we can find you online. How can people join your work, join your business ecosystem?
Oh, thank you. I hang out a lot on Instagram. So I'm on Instagram at Emily Anne, Anne Brant, Brant. And my website is emilyannbrant.com. And I have a podcast, the Soul's Way podcast, where I
Mm.
also to hang out and share my thoughts. Yeah. Thank you for asking.
And if they wanted to jump into any of your programs.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Those are, thank you. Those are on my Instagram as well. But the ones that are coming up right now are the roundtable is coming back live, which is super exciting.
Mm.
This is a virtual gathering to learn the beginning steps of decolonizing your business and your practice. And you'll find it most easily probably on my website or my Instagram, but it's emilyannbrant.com/TRT-live, the roundtable live. And then we also have the Decolonize coach community, which, as I said, is always open. It's a 12-month access, and there's 6 modules that go deep into step-by-step what decolonizing your practice can actually look like. So we go through mindset, words, and actions. So things we can unlearn and relearn, words we can start to speak and work into our marketing, but also actions we can take so that those words aren't just performative or misleading, but actually we do this in a fulsome way where it's a lot of work, but it's really rewarding work and you're guided every single step of the way and there's community. So
Mm.
that's the Decolonized Coach community. I'm sure we can link that up too so that people don't have to try to memorize all these links.
Just go to Instagram. You'll find everything
Just
there.
go to Instagram. It's all there.
That's
Yes.
what I
Thank
tell
you.
people. I'm like, the stuff is on Instagram. I don't know, go there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank
Thank
you so
you.
much, Emily, for coming on. This has been such a pleasure and for sharing your wisdom and your stories. And do you have any final messages or words of wisdom for people who are listening right now?
I think I said this on a podcast the other day, but I think the biggest message that I would share is just to remind you how much your impact matters. Even if you think you don't have a big audience or a big clientele, every single interaction makes a difference. And I always think of it like the ripple effect, right? If you might think you're just one small drop in the ocean, but if you look at even a drop, when it hits the water, it makes these ripples that move and ripple out. And so that's how I like to see my work. And that's how I remind you to see your work and just the way you show up and just like focusing on what's right in front of you and how you can impact your little corner of the world is really powerful. So just wanted to remind folks of that.
Thank you.